Good morning, everybody. Today's Thursday, April 9th, and we're going to do some math. We're going to talk about mental math strategies for subtraction again. So let's take a look. All right. So here's our problem. It says, before we start, I want to talk about this word in red, sum. If you see the word sum, is that an exact amount? Do you know how much? Like if I say I'm going to give you some money, do you know how much money I'm going to give you? No, you just know some. You know, it's more than zero, but you don't know how much. It could be $1. It could be $100. I don't know. Probably not $100. I probably wouldn't do that. But anyway, so some means we don't know. All right, let's go back and read. Kendra has some strawberries. She eats 5 of them. Now she has 8 strawberries. How many strawberries did Kendra start with? All right, so what are we talking about? We're talking about strawberries, which I wish I had in my refrigerator right now because I love strawberries, but I don't. So anyway, I digress. Okay, so we know she has some strawberries. We don't know how many she starts with. We know she eats 5 of them, and that when she's done, she still has 8. So that's what we know. How many strawberries did Kendra start with? So we want to know how many she had in the beginning. So here's my first thing. So I can actually do this one in my head because I've been doing this a long time. But I'm going to write an equation based on what we know. So I don't know how many we start with. So I'm just going to put a blank line. So Kendra has some strawberries. Question mark. I don't know how many she has. She eats 5 of them, right? So even if I didn't tell you in my directions that this was subtraction, if I'm going to eat 5 of them, does that mean that I'm going to get more or that I'm going to have less? So if I give you some strawberries and then I eat some of them, are you going to have more or less? You're going to have less because you're going to eat some of them. So we're going to subtract. So less means subtraction. If I'm eating some, I'm taking some away. All right, so she has some. She eats some, but we know she eats 5. So Kendra has some strawberries. She eats 5, and now she has 8. So when she's done, she still has 8. Okay, all right, let's look at that for a second. Let's think. How are we going to find this one? How are we going to figure out how many we started with? There's a couple ways. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make our little number bond here, right? It's a lot like my part hole. I'm going to make our little number bond. And do we know our total? Do we know how many she started with? We don't. So that's my question mark. I know she ate 5. And I know that when she was done, she had 8. So now I'm going to think, what are some of the strategies we talked about? We talked about making tens. We talked about doubles. We've talked about using our fact families. So let me think about the fact family one for a minute. So if I know my first one is something minus 5 equals 8, then I can also say something minus 8 equals 5, right? Because our atoms don't matter, the minuend doesn't matter, these guys. I can turn it around, right? And I could say 8 plus 5 equals something, right? That means the same thing. If something minus 5 equals 8, then 8 plus 5 has to equal something. And I can turn this factor around. 5 plus 8 equals something. So there's my fact family. Does that help? Like if I said to you, hey, how much is 8 plus 5? Can you remember that one in your head? We've been getting pretty good at our fact families. So I think you probably would know. If you didn't know, you do know that 8 is only 2 away from 10. So if I said 8 plus 2 is 10, and then I'd have 3 more left over in my 5. So that would be 13, right? So 13 5 8. So 8, 5 plus 8 equals 13. So she started with 13. Now one other thing, so let's change this to a 13 now everywhere. One other thing to remember is that you could use your number line, right? You could use your fingers. You could start at 8 and go 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You could you could get on the number line and start at 8 and go up to 13. You could draw it. You could draw like all the strawberries, 5 strawberries and 8 strawberries. You could draw your part whole the way I like to. All of those things, but knowing that you could turn this into an addition problem, I think would make it easier to remember that. That's it. So that is using mental math strategies for subtraction. And you can keep practicing, keep learning alive, and I'll see you Monday.